Hi. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi. All right. So full disclosure, just before we get started, this is unfortunately take two, or fortunately, whichever way you want to look at it. We have done this Zoom catch up already. We did it yesterday, and it went for about 73 hours. Not really. It was a decent 45 minutes or so, and unfortunately, I'm going to blame the technology of the computer or Zoom or somebody else other than me that didn't press the record button. But yes, that did happen. So we're at 2.0 for this one. So we may be referring to a lot of the stuff that we talked about yesterday, if we can even remember what it was that we actually talked about. So anyway, we'll crack on. So you've probably realised by now we have two lovely ladies joining us today. They in Carolyn Giblet and Michelle Bolitho. Yes, that's you two. I'm talking to you. We're very, very lucky. I'm very excited to have these guys here. And look, it's a second day in a row for me, so I'm super pumped. But I guess for those that don't know who you guys are out there in the big wide world, how about you tell us who you are and your industry background and how you ended up where you are today?
I've been in the travel industry for a frightening 25 years. And most of that with Flight Centre, actually. I have been, same as most Flight Centre people, start in retail, managing. I moved into leadership training, and then for the last 7 or 8 years, I've been a customer experience leader. I was the customer experience leader for Flight Centre Vic Tas. And I left the business, the big red and white beast, in July last year. And Michelle and I started our own business in November. Mm-hmm. Kicked off the ground in November last year, dealing primarily with travel industry, businesses, organisations, individuals in their customer experience space. So taking our knowledge and expertise that we learned and honed in the Flight Centre, the big red and white, with all the brands in that organisation and then taking it externally. And we were very excited up until about March the 14th that we're very optimistic and very excited that what we'd learned and what we felt very passionate about in Flight Centre actually had legs outside of that business, which is, I think, one of the fears that lots of us long-termers have, is do we stand up outside the big red and white beast? And so we were really excited that we did. And then somebody ate a bat, and then that changed.
I'm Michelle, and like Carolyn, I have been in the travel industry for 25 years. I think Carolyn and I both started at the same time, and she came for an interview at the shop that I worked in, and we didn't take her because we thought she was too posh, which I find hysterical. Hilarious. So yeah, similar story. I was very fortunate that I had sorry. We're going to be a lot funnier today than we were yesterday because we both sleep deprived. But I was very lucky that I had 10 years in the UK, which gave me a real insight into, I guess, a whole nother world and business setup, which was exciting. And similarly, I've worked in the customer experience space and in leadership space. So I'm just repeating what Carolyn said because we both left. We started our own business called Aspire CX, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things from that today. And certainly did a better job yesterday.
No one will ever know. So
I know.
Don't tell them.
We were so funny yesterday. It was hilarious, and we looked about 15 years younger. It was amazing. Yeah, great.
And, anyway, and you forgot to put in your disclaimer around your social distancing, because officially you work together. You're at work.
We're at work. Yeah. So yes, that's a disclaimer.
Yeah. So if anyone is judging you, that's
very safe.
That's where we're at.
Yeah.
Speaking of,
before we came today,
how's the social distancing going? I guess you guys live in a really beautiful part of the world, and that's fantastic for the before and after works and weekends and all of that other stuff. But how's things changed for you through this process?
Yeah, look, I think the on the outside, everybody puts on a pretty brave face, and they use words like grateful. We're very grateful that we live in a beautiful part of the world, and we're going to kumbaya our way through this by learning lots of new skills and languages. And Carolyn wants to learn macrame. I did learn macrame. But the reality is it's tough, you know, economically it's had a huge impact on everybody. Our kids are at home learning. We're missing connecting with people. Our business has been impacted. But I think there's going to be some great things that come on the other side of this. I'm just looking forward to the time that where we can get back to whatever the new normal is. So, yeah, it's been an interesting 6 weeks that we will all look back on and talk about for a long time, I think.
Yes, same. It's challenging, capital C's, lots of different words and adjectives I could use to describe it. We have teenagers. I think that's really, really difficult for them, and it's difficult to see how they'll pick up their learning. I've got my daughter's in year 12, and so she's really hating life, and she's really suffering through this. So that's a challenge, and I hope that they can pick up and move forward in some really positive way. And I'm anticipating in about 18 months, probably, maybe 2 years, it will take us to look back retrospectively and look forward to having ISO weekends, because I think that we'll get to a point where we've been out and we've been busy and we've been hectic, and then the new phrase will be, oh, we're having an ISO weekend this weekend. And it's going to take us a long time to be excited about that. Is somebody coming in?
Yes, they are allowed to have a yogurt.
Only a yogurt. Wow. I have a Tim Tam while you're at it.
So when I said only interrupt me in case of emergency, it was the yogurt.
Hungry.
So I apologise for that.
That is an emergency.
Yeah. So,
anyway, we're ready to move on.
Yeah.
We're all sick of talking about COVID-19.
Absolutely. So you guys said that you started a business in November last year. And obviously that, like everyone's, been put on hold, or there's a pause or a hibernation or whatever, trending word you want to use at the time. What were you guys working on leading up to that point, and how was that looking?
So, yeah, look, we launched our business in November, which was really exciting. And primarily it is, as Carolyn mentioned earlier, it's partnering with businesses, not just travel, but at the moment our main focus has been travel, to help them align the promises that they make to their customers with actually the experience that's been delivered. So we were really excited. We were working with a great business, and we sort of delivered phase 1 of that, and there were some really awesome outcomes from that, some big changes that were made, and some fantastic outcomes that we're tracking, and all in the right direction. So again, along came COVID-19. So we are also in hibernation, and we're going to use this time for a couple of, the great thing is we could focus on our kids who are at home, but we're also going to make sure that we are working on the right things and anticipating some of the impacts that this is going to have on the industry, and how we're going to respond to that when it comes out the other side. So, we're just going to get busy sharpening the focus in that space.
And we found that we were fortunate in that we probably picked up our first customer a bit faster than we had anticipated, which was great. So we hit the ground running, and we very much have a motto of progress over perfection. And so we haven't got our website up and running. We haven't done any of that sort of back end stuff, because we launched straight in and we were really busy doing what we were doing with our clients. So we're going to go back and actually work on some of those things now.
Yeah.
And obviously, being customer experience experts or gurus, or well versed and experienced in that side of things, obviously you were getting to a certain point with your first client and starting to work on some processes. What do you think, and what will you guys start to think about? What that customer experience could look like on the other side of this? Especially in the travel industry. What will that experience need to look like, or what could it look like, or what's some of the thought processes you guys have gone through to start sort of taking what you may be delivering on the other side of this, or advising as what things could possibly look like?
Yeah, Carolyn and I spoke about it a lot yesterday, but the things leading up to this were looking at our customer experience principles that we use as benchmarks for when we're spending time in other businesses. And the two that I think are most relevant right now are meet the customer where they're at, and make it easy. And you know, if you think about it logically, the customer is going to be very different when they start inquiring about travel in the next few weeks than they were leading up to pre-COVID-19. And the things that are going to be really important for us to get our head around and to work with businesses on is, how do you help people understand how to meet their customers where they're at? So things like rapport and connection, all those things are really, really important, but also understanding that the customer is coming to you scared, a little bit suspicious, lacking confidence, wanting to have real security around all the terms and conditions that have perhaps been up for grabs in the last couple of months around refunds, etc. So it's really understanding, how do I need to consult differently? What kind of questions do I need to ask the customer? How do I embrace or help them embrace all the information that they need to know to feel confident, certain, and trust in you, because they're all the things that they are not feeling right now. And that's a real game changer. And so habits that perhaps, or the way you consulted previously, is going to be very different when you move out of this. And so that's probably one of the things that we'll talk a bit more through the conversation today, is how do you use this time wisely to start thinking about what kind of things you could be saying to your customers. I imagine that you're feeling a bit concerned about, etc., etc. I imagine you want to know about our refund process. It's all that detail that you just need to get out proactively that perhaps we haven't had to do before, so that it makes it easy for the customer, but you're also meeting them where they're at, as opposed to getting defensive because they want to know all that information. Is there anything you want to add to that?
No, that's good. Well said. It was pretty.
I guess, yeah, I see the being two main areas that people need to consider, which is that their existing customer base or existing, community or portfolio, whatever you want to call it, and how that interaction with that customer may need to change. It may need to go back to, that building trust and connection and being more transparent and so forth. Stuff you may not have had to do before because you may have known that person for 10 or 15 years. But we are hearing stories that even long-term existing customers are firing up or getting really upset or angry or aggressive towards their agents, through no fault of their own. So rebuilding that relationship, maybe something people need to consider. And then obviously the other side of things, which is a lot of people are going to need new customers. Even the agents that were full or had enough customers or enough business, a lot of those customers may not be traveling or may take some time to be traveling again. So to be sustainable, everybody, whether you're starting a business, growing a business, or at full capacity, everybody's going to need to play in the space of, how do I attract new customers and how do I convince those new customers to book with me? So the relationship and the trust and the transparency and all of those things, that process it will almost be the same on both sides, whether you're existing or new. It just needs to be, as I think we talked about yesterday, some habits.
Sorry.
That's all right. Some habits, some language, stuff that people need to think about how they're going to operate on the other side may be different. So.
Yeah, and one of the things, just in case we forget, that we talked about yesterday, using the word trust. It's a big one, and one of my absolute favourite leadership books is The Speed of Trust, which I have had for years, and I bring it out often. And it's one that I would really recommend people grab or even just Google it, and there'll be some one pages on it. But the principles that sit behind that they're really relevant right now, because it is about how do I go about building trust? How do I extend trust? But understanding that things happen more quickly when there is trust. So the question now is, knowing that your customer's coming to you a little bit suspicious or uncertain or a bit fear-driven, what do I do as the person interacting with them to help build trust, so that we can start helping, rebuilding this business, but we can help the customers move forward as well. So that's one that if you've got time, go seek it out, because it is a great one on not just a professional level, but also on a personal level. It's a good one. And
I think yesterday you mentioned, if one person's bold enough to ask a question like, how do you get paid? What's commission? How does all this work? There could be, another 10 people that want to ask the question but aren't asking the question. So is it time to, instead of waiting for have our script or our answer ready, we proactively, you know, maybe need to change how we talk about that, you know, or be upfront with that first. You know, I think
that's going to be a really, really important thing. And one of the questions that we start every time we're having a conversation with a customer, whether it's, you know, one of ours that we're presenting to, or leaders that we've worked with in the past of businesses within the Flight Centre brand, we always start with the question of what would make you proud, and ask yourself, if customers were talking about you, and they are, what would you want them to say? And then we help leaders, and whether it's nation leaders, area leaders, team leaders, individual consultants, we help them define the way that they would like their customers to describe them, and then identify and articulate the behaviours that they would have to display in every interaction with that customer to ensure that that's what their customer is actually going to say about them. So this is going to be incredibly important now. And I have a concern for agents that have got these long-term clients that they've had great relationships with in the past. And I fear that it's going to be hard not to take it personally when those people start questioning perhaps your integrity. It might feel like an attack on integrity and honesty and what have you. And that's going to be a really difficult thing to manage. So I think if agents are very proactive in thinking, okay, I can imagine that my customers are going to be thinking these things. How do I get paid? How much have you made off me in the past? And what value are you offering me here? And could I really not do this myself? So they'll be thinking those things. And I think if agents can be on the front foot and imagine the questions that customers will be thinking, and then they can articulate a response and then actually say it out loud to themselves, practice it in the mirror in the morning so that it will roll off the tongue. And as you say, not wait until they're asked, but actually offer the information. They'll go a long way towards
building trust.
And addressing, not making people feel bad and guilty for thinking these things or wanting to know these questions. Because a lot of the time, in my experience, a lot of the time we don't book somebody that we're absolutely convinced, particularly as perhaps newer consultants, they're definitely coming back to book with me. Customers actually just don't want to come back and say, oh, I found a cheaper price, or this person's more convenient, or my husband spoke to that person and they actually would prefer to book with them. They just feel bad because they like you. They feel connected to you, they like you, they've got a rapport with you, and then they feel bad that perhaps they won't book something with you. So they just stop returning calls.
They ghost you.
They just ghost you. There's a high likelihood that is going to happen. And I think that if agents and consultants can get on the front foot and say, I imagine that you will have questions around terms and conditions, around cancellation fees, around change fees, and around the way that I get paid. So I'm just going to address some of those things because it's different from the way it was, this time last year. I think that will go a long way towards building trust, and that's going to be the biggest thing, the biggest separator, I think, from the everyday and the consultant that's going to be really memorable and is actually going to be stronger and have better relationships going forward, which is going to be critical.
Yeah. And this will sort of go in a little bit further down the track, but this is about your personal branding as well. So this is, again, using this time wisely now to sit back, stop what you're doing, sit back, think about things and go, right, I've got an opportunity now to recreate and rebrand myself when it comes out the other side. So, one of your personal values or your brand values might be transparency or honesty or as examples. And it's like, how do you then extend that and how do you market that? And that is exactly as Carolyn said, sitting down with your customers and communicating that. This is one of the things that's really important to me when I engage with you or you engage with my business, is that you feel safe, secure and confident in the information I'm giving you. So what we're going to do is I'm going to use that word, we're going to unpack all of the things that you need to know that you might be concerned about right now, because it's logical empathy. It's logical that they're going to be feeling this way. So meet them where they're at and use this time to really fine tune your brand so that you are very clear about what you want your customers to feel when they experience you and your brand and your business, and then work out how are you going to deliver on that. So they're not just words on a wall. And it's very easy to say, this is what I am, but the hard work comes in how you do that. So don't tell me, show me. And you've got to think about, I think this is a great opportunity for all people and all businesses to really fine tune that, knowing that the customer is going to be different and the world is a bit different. So that'll really, I think the personal branding is a great opportunity now. It's that big picture stuff. This is a long game and it's going to take time. So you just have to help your customers move forward. And the way you do that is on a foundation of trust. So
just saying, you can trust me, I'm very trustworthy. Hi,
I'm Michelle and I'm trustworthy. You don't show it. Exactly.
And you could hand on heart fully believe it, and you know, but unless you show some form of behavior or you know, articulate it in a way that people can understand it or show them, doesn't mean anything. So
you have to walk the talk. And so that's the area that we're very passionate about, and we have spent a lot of time in the last few years, is really helping businesses and individuals clarify what would make me proud, what do I want my customers to say about me, what are my branding, what's my branding, or what are my customer facing principles? How do I do that? Because we all want people to trust us, but
how do you do
it's
that?
kind of an assumed thing. If somebody's not trustworthy, you're probably not going to do business with them. So how do I build trust as opposed to just stick it as a word on a wall and then not do the wrong thing, therefore I'm trustworthy? It's about being proactive, and it's usually really very simple things. And often when we've spoken to businesses, we preempt it and we have a bit of a disclaimer and say, look, everything that we talk to you about, you're actually going to know, in your heart of hearts, you're going to know. And we're just going to help you clarify it, put some structure around it, articulate it clearly so that it can be taught. Perhaps if you're bringing, you know, new team members on, or if you've got a team of people, you can teach it, and you can even measure it if you want to. So we help them with that process of, you already know that you want to do this. We'll help you put better words around it, clearer structure, clearer processes, and we'll actually help you with the behaviours that you need to display every day in every interaction to ensure you're living and breathing it. And then if you want to measure it, we can help you with that as well. Yeah.
And I think we talked yesterday a lot about this crowded space. That's going to come out of this. You know, there's going to be a lot of travel agents. There's going to be a lot of travel agencies that are going to hopefully survive this period through the job keeper or whatever the process is. And then when it does open up, and if it's domestic borders or the New Zealand bubble or whatever it is that they're saying, you know, how are people, you know, how best should people be thinking about how they stand out in that crowd, or how they're going to make sure that, you know, their name is still mentioned, you know, when it comes to people thinking about travel or booking travel or domestic travel, for instance.
I think this is one of the places where experienced consultants with a good customer base are going to, it's going to test their knowledge of their customers and how well they really know them. So if you have got a database of customers, let's say you've got 150 or 200 people that you regularly book throughout a year, if you know what they like to do, and they're skiers, for example, and they might have been planning to go skiing over Christmas this year in Colorado or in Europe or something, and they're not able to, then maybe you would get on the front foot and say, look, we think New Zealand's going to open, so would you be interested in that? So you're showing that you know them, you're showing that you care about them, you're showing that you're proactively looking and thinking about their needs and what offers there are going to be out there. Because one of the things that concerns me a little bit is that wholesalers are going to start, through absolute need of their own survival, are going to start contacting customers directly themselves if they didn't before. And they're going to be doing that for very practical reasons about rebooking and, you know, seeing where customers are at and discussing refunds and all of those sorts of things. But it also is it's a dangerous place because agents are perhaps left out of some of those conversations. So to still immerse yourself, to still wedge yourself in between the provider and the customer, you're going to need to find ways to do that. And in the domestic market and even the New Zealand market, it's a little bit more difficult because I think people are really comfortable with booking domestic travel themselves. We drive on the same side of the road, talk the same language, similar currency. It's all very easy to do that. So you're going to have to create a space for yourself in a market where perhaps you didn't really sit before. You might have booked the international travel for this particular customer, but they might have booked their own holiday to Noosa every year. So it's about trying to ensure that you're staying in contact with them through that process where they start emerging out of this cocoon that we're all living in at the moment, and knowing that you just need to be in touch with them, show that you know them by trying to find local destinations and products that will meet their needs that they may have been going to Asia for, or Europe or North America or something for. That is something that I'd be really thinking pretty hard about.
And there's another, just before you jump in, Michelle, but there's another word that, you know, we love, a trending word at the moment, but personification is something that is discussed quite a lot. And if you do have 200 customers, and if you don't have a spreadsheet or a little black book or something that is telling you exactly who that customer is, how they like to travel, what products they like to, you know, where they stay, what star ratings, you know, what, if you can't have all that information in one place, it's going to be very hard for you to be proactive and get on the front foot. Pick up the phone, because it's only 200 phone calls or maybe 100 phone calls, and just check in with them all and say, look, you know, maybe what do you normally book that you don't book with me? You know, whether that is Noosa or, you know, whether, are you thinking if the border's open, will you travel domestic, or will you just go to your beach house and save your money for when the international border's open? Like, you know, actually documenting and being on top of all of that information, now, however you do that, spreadsheet, whatever, I think is a real key, you know, an opportunity, you know, in the downtime, to do what you've never probably been able to do before.
Or never had to, which is I think, you know, we've all been in the industry for a long time, and there've been some, you know, there's been many ups and downs. It hasn't been a smooth ride all the way through, and the best businesses or business people or individuals survive when they've got really good systems and a really good plan, and they really are very clear about what they're trying to do. So, and that's okay if you haven't got that sorted out yet. But my advice now is use this time. It's kind of a gift to get your shit together. And, you know, you would have heard me say this before, Josh, be very, very clear about who you are, what you stand for, and what you practice every day, because this is a long game and we are impatient by nature. We want things to happen quickly, and this is going to take time. So you need to be very clear on that stuff, be very clear on your personal branding, but then have a really good plan so that you've got good processes and systems that are going to help you achieve the goals that you want to have, because you're going to have to work on that every single day, and then the bookings aren't going to be dropping like they have before. It's going to take time. So for your own personal, I guess, mindfulness and sense of achievement, you'll need to feel like you're achieving those things, but get your foundation sorted out. Work out what you need to do, get some good systems so that you're organised, because when it does start happening, you'll be able to accelerate out of that, whereas other people are still going to be fiddling around trying to work out what the hell they're, you know, that they stand for. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there to clear the space, work out what it is you're good at, what you want to achieve, and then start. Don't wait, be very proactive, and work on it every day, because it will change, but it's going to take time. We're going to need to be patient through that.
Agree. What are some of the other areas that you think that the travel industry could, you know, look different on the other side? What should people be, you know, preparing for, or you know, what are some of the roads that we could all end up in or go down? What are your thought processes around that side of things?
It's tricky, isn't it? I
without a crystal ball, but
without a crystal ball,
I think it's going to be a while before we head overseas. So domestic will be. That doesn't mean people won't be thinking about it, but they'll be. We've used that word a lot today. Is they'll be cautious. So I'm imagining that people will travel interstate within their own state first, and they'll travel interstate. They'll head over to New Zealand. People will want to go overseas, and I was listening to an interview this morning. People are starting to think about it, but they'll be cautious. There'll be places that were probably really popular before that won't be for a long time, but there'll be new places that people go to.
Which I think is where it again, sounds like a broken record, but I think knowing your clients is going to be very important, because if they desperately wanted to go and trek in Nepal and it's just off the cards for a long time, then is there a similar experience you can offer them or suggest to them in a different country that is going to be more accessible faster? So that what was that word? Personification. Anyway, knowing them is
stuff.
Yeah.
Personal stuff.
Knowing
your customer
is going to be really, really critical. And so that's the existing customers that you've got. If you're trying to win new customers and you're lucky enough to have people calling you, which is going to perhaps take a while, you need to spend a lot of time in that getting to know space. And agents are often, particularly experienced agents, often don't realise how quickly they move into logistics and how they move from, hi, how are you going? Oh, that's exciting. You want to go to, Croatia. And then they quickly move into their knowledge base, which is where they feel their expertise lies, and it's where they feel their point of difference lies, is their knowledge, their expertise of the destination and the products that they're talking to this customer about. Knowledge these days on destinations product is not as valuable as it used to be, because we all have access to the internet. And as I said, there's going to be a lot of wholesalers that are contacting customers directly now. Yeah. So they've already got a lot of access to knowledge. They'll have even more when wholesalers start reaching out. So that getting to know the person, that will be absolutely critical. So spending time talking to a customer about why you're going, what's attracted you to that destination, is it a special occasion, who are you celebrating with, oh, that's so exciting, really spending a lot of time in that space. And by a lot of time, I mean 5 or 10 minutes. I don't mean an hour and a half or 3 meetings. I mean 5 or 10 minutes in really connecting and building a rapport with a new customer particularly is going to be very, very important, because one of the things that we like to think that it makes a big difference for agents, consultants, businesses in general, is you need to be memorable. There is so much product, there's so many different offerings out there, so many different people that you can book with or through, or destinations you can go to. It's what makes you memorable about the interaction, the person-to-person interaction, because travel is a very emotional purchase, and it's going to be really emotional because we've all missed it so much. We've missed the freedom, we've missed the opportunity, we've missed the dreaming that we've had, in the last 12 months. And some people have missed really significant events that were scheduled, in their life.
Yeah.
So it's going to be more emotional than ever before, if that's at all possible. And so connecting on that level is going to be really critically important, I think, if you want to be memorable.
Just on that, I guess going through the new technology phase of Zoom and phone, and we may see we'll definitely see less face-to-face consultations to begin with, and even in the future, as a lot of businesses decide that maybe this isn't the end of the world, to have people remotely working from home, even if they are bricks and mortar, maybe they're in there a couple of days a week from home, and all of those things. How do agents who have possibly been in the game for 10, 15, 20 years and have always been and always said out loud and been happy to say it, that I'm always better face to face, I'm always good with my customers face to face, I just don't do that well on the phone or email or possibly Zoom in the future? How are those agents going to need to pivot, love the word, or adapt, their business?
Flexible, adaptable.
How are they going to, what should they be thinking about how they need to, change the way they do things a little bit to adapt to the new normal.
The new normal. One thing that I hope is a comfort to people who are used to dealing face-to-face primarily and have that as their preferred method of contact. One thing I can tell you for absolute rock solid certainty is that a customer's intention doesn't change regardless of whether they contact you via phone or they're able to walk into your business. Their intention is, if they are reaching out to contact you, and that is usually the way this goes, we're not usually a cold calling business. Usually a customer is reaching out to you. If they're reaching out to you, they are at a certain stage in their buying process. We call it the buying cycle. And their intention doesn't change. They are going to book a holiday at some point. It might be within days, it might be within weeks, it might be within years. It depends where they are in that research and buying cycle process. But their intention is to go on a holiday and they're looking for somebody to book it with. So the reason I think that's important is because a lot of the time agents who have a preference of dealing face-to-face with customers think that a customer who calls them rather than bothers coming into the business and makes an appointment or drops in is not as serious, and so they treat them as such. And what they don't necessarily realise is that because the agent is not taking that customer as seriously, they don't think the customer's intention is as serious, they don't spend as much time building rapport, they don't spend as much time qualifying and understanding the customer's needs, and they tend to rush straight into logistics and recommendations. So, and they then follow up half the amount of time. So they plan the next step or the next point of contact. An agent does that literally half the amount of time over the phone than they do face-to-face. So if you know with confidence that the customer's intention is the same, at some point they are going on a holiday, what they're shopping for at this point in time is who they're booking that with. This is particularly for new customers. If you know that their intention is the same, whether they walk into your business or they call your business, perhaps you will respond differently. You have all the skills that you need. It doesn't change anything at all, whether they're face-to-face or over the phone. It changes nothing at all. So have your clean sheet of paper, make sure you've removed all distractions, you've turned off the television, you've done whatever you need to do. Maybe you've got out of your jammies, so you're in work mode. But have the same intention, which is why, I can't remember if we talked about it today, but we talked about it yesterday. Have purposeful, intentional conversations. And this is where having your customer principles clear and working towards this idea of what do I want the customer to say about the interaction when they hang this phone up. And then you will work towards that and you will work towards fulfilling that every time. That will make a big difference. And if your intention is to be memorable and you behave with honesty, transparency, and all of the things that it takes to be memorable and you have a personal connection, it will not impact your business if a customer can't walk into it. It won't. It will only be your intention that changes the results and the outcomes from that.
There's a, thank you, that was awesome. There's a fabulous TED Talk, which we'll put the link on afterwards, and it's from Darren Ross from the Magic Castle Hotel. And he talks a lot about the, I guess, the things that they do to really stand out. I'm not going to give the whole backstory because you can go and watch it. It's great. But the reason I bring this up is he has a great face-to-face welcome speech where a new customer comes or a new guest comes to the hotel and they get out from behind the reception desk and they say, I'd like to take a moment to tell you what an absolute pleasure it is to have you come and stay with us. And he prefaces that around, create a moment, earn a memory. And one of the things I think a lot of us can start thinking about, knowing that it's Zoom and over the phone or whatever it is, that's not face-to-face, is what are the metaphorical things, or is that the right word? What are the things that we can be doing that we can't get out from behind our desk and make that welcome speech? But what are some of the things that we can do that still create that feeling and that make us memorable, where a customer goes, wow, that's amazing. She really stood out, or he really stood out on the things that he or she said, or how they made me feel through that interaction. So again, they're the things that you can start really thinking about. If that's something that I like the idea of, what could I do every time I Zoom a customer, every time I have a conversation with a customer over the phone, that give that same feeling, because you've got to be able to replicate it. It'll be different, but it doesn't mean it's not possible. And I think it's exciting. We can be a bit more efficient this way, but we're going to miss the interaction with people. But it doesn't mean we can't create those great moments that make us memorable and make us stand out. So I'd highly recommend, again, that one as a good. There's a few things that you'll take away from that.
Yeah, we'll add that through to the links. Anything else? What other advice or?
Yeah, yesterday I spoke about just being kind to yourself. This is tough, and embrace that as well. Have a bit of be kind to yourself, knowing that we're all in this together, and everybody's being impacted some way. But through this process as well, kind of knowing that you will miss, if your preference is dealing face to face, you'll also miss that. So don't overcommit yourself with the number of Zoom calls, etc. you do in a day, because it's exhausting. Naturally, you get your energy and a bit of motivation from being around people, and when you're just doing it face to face all day, that can be really draining. And there's a lot of giving. You don't get much back because you can't read signals, feed off people. So my advice is be kind to yourself and find ways to stay energized so that you can deliver those magical moments. They're going to require a bit more energy than when somebody walks into your business and you can put a big smile on your face. So that's probably one thing I would say is, what can you do for yourself that keeps you at your optimum level through this as you're recreating what it's going to look like in the future for yourself.
I don't have anything to add to that, except remember, if you wear earrings, to put them in from time to time, because I noticed after I had not worn earrings for 6 weeks, it's quite hard to get them through my ears. So that would be my advice, is do all of the things that Michelle said and put your earrings in from time to time. Yeah.
Great tip.
Yeah, I think so.
I haven't put an earring in since I was about 16.
Have you not?
But no. So
that applies to any piercings that you have, by the way. They do, it changes.
Look, I don't know if we've covered off everything that we spoke about yesterday.
I've been flicking through the questions.
Yeah.
Look,
there's a lot. If anybody wants to talk to us about this, if you think, I don't know what the hell they're talking about, those customer principle things, sounds like a crock to me, please pick up the phone. We are working as hard on our business and redefining that and sharpening what that looks like and sounds like in our offering to people as much as you're going to be. And so we're sitting around not spending as much time being productive as we could and as we are determined to be. So we're more than happy to chat to anybody about how they would go about doing this, because sometimes it sounds good in theory and then you try it and it doesn't really work. So feel free to pick up the phone and give us a call.
Send us an email. And I think, just added to that, I think that's, perhaps what you'll hear a lot of, and what we've tried not to, but I think we have at the same time, is there's a lot of this is what you could be doing, what. And you go, that's, again, how the hell do you do that? And I think that's where we sit. We sit in that space. We sit in that space well.
In the house
space. And so happy to help.
And probably even to take the step back that we probably really haven't spoken about, and that's the why step.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why are you doing this? Why are you here? Why do you want to continue to do this? Why have you put up with the worst, 8 weeks of your career, day in, day out? And why haven't you pulled the pin yet? Or why do you still want to be there on the other side? Why do you do what you do? Needs to come first, so that you can then start to think about, what do you want to be known for, and then obviously you figure out how you're going to actually do that day in, day out. But if you don't know why you're doing that, then it's going to be hard to get out of bed in the morning.
Exactly, and it's going to be a very quick time between. If you're not clear on that stuff, if you don't get to where you want to be very quickly, it'll be too much for you. So again, it's about longevity here, and that's probably one thing that we can also help with is how do we help you sort of get that in place so that you can last, because you've got the good foundations in place, and one bad day after another doesn't derail you. It just helps you build stronger because you're very clear about why you continue to do this. So why you did it previously may be very different about why you continue to do this on the other side. So again, I think a lot of it goes back to using this time really wisely to get really clear about that stuff and be very clear about, actually this one thing we spoke about yesterday, if a customer, which they will and they should, contact you and say, why should I book with you? Why would I do business with you? You have to be really, really clear about the answer for that. And that's the stuff that you're going to have to think about, prepare, practice and believe yourself. And it's a really valid question. And I think it's an absolute privilege that we get the opportunity to answer that question for customers.
Because most people think it but not ask it.
So yeah.
So or do we proactively make sure that we tell them?
Yeah, that's part of the thing that we need to be.
You know,
that's what I'm saying about how you're going to have to create a space for yourself in this market going forward, where there might not have been a space before in that domestic Pacific market. So that why contact me, you know, what I'm going to do for you and how I'm going to go about
don't
doing
wait.
it is,
don't wait.
It will be critical, and it will be uncomfortable. There'll be uncomfortable conversations the first few times, particularly because you'll sound like you're selling yourself, and we hate doing that. But it's going to be pretty important to be confident in that space.
Yeah.
It's going to have to be well thought out responses and well practiced.
Yeah.
And who do you, I've forgotten who we spoke about yesterday, but who do you guys think that we should hear from? Who's your nominate 3?
Well, our first one is Bonita Capuano.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
We've done a bit of stuff with you guys as well. She, her tagline is "Get your shit together" with Bonita, and she's fabulous at helping you perhaps lay out some of this stuff and get yourself organised. She's very organised. She helps you prioritise really well. But first of all, you have to understand what it is, what questions you need to answer for yourself. But I'd highly recommend Bonita as my first one.
Second one is Paddy Scott, and he's the marketing manager for Travel Marvel. Travel Marvel.
Can you delete that? Get it right?
Yeah.
Good. Travel Marvel.
Who's the other one from APT?
Travel Marvel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's Travel Marvel.
I knew, but I just wanted to let you.
I got up at 4 a.m. to watch that bloody Halley's Comet thing. Didn't see a thing. Didn't go back to sleep. Then I forgot who I was talking about. Sorry, Paddy. And Cassie Tormey from Cornerstone People Solutions, and they are well linked to the travel industry around professional development, and they're offering diplomas at the moment through the William Anglis Institute, and it's linked to COVID-19 funding and what have you. So it's very relevant to many of us out there at the moment.
Awesome.
They're our 3. Sorry, Patty.
Awesome. Massive thank you to both of you again to do this the second time.
How long did we go for this time?
I don't know, 27 hours or something, I'm not sure. But we actually could go for that long, you know, and we touched on more things that we didn't touch on yesterday, and we've gone over some other stuff, so I'm sure there's hours and hours of stuff that we could talk about. But what's clear from me from this is that, you know, people need to understand, you know, what it is that they want to achieve on the other side of this, and start putting some things in place to work towards that. Anticipate what the other side could look like. No one's going to know fully, but I guess prepare yourself for, you know, all avenues or all outcomes that, you know, this could look like on the other side. So which is what we're trying to achieve here, which is, you know, to keep people connected and give them some clear advice and strategies and things that they should be working on or could be working on, you know, that will help everybody be better and stronger for the other side. So we really, really do appreciate you taking the time a second time. And we wish you all the best with your new venture when it can come out of hibernation and kick off, because, you know, you're both awesome at what you do, and, you know, anybody that gets to work with you guys, you know, always comes out the better. So, you know, good luck with that, and hope to see you on the other side.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Talk soon. See you.
Bye.
Bye.